this video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how I service our Westerbeke generator. I'll just run you through the procedures. Also, every year what we do is we take off the heat exchanger and make sure that that's thoroughly cleaned, because if it's not, that's when you can get some really major issues. Before we start doing anything on the generator, I've got to make sure that I close all the stop corks, because as soon as I take off any hoses, there's going to be gallons and gallons of water coming in, so I'm going to make sure we don't do that. And I've done it before. Now I'll walk you through what I do. Okay, here I am starting. I start with the air filter, change over, put it all back in. Now I'm pumping out oil, because you can't go under the sump and take out a sump plug, so I'm pumping it all out, and I'm making sure that I have something that catches any oil that goes over. Also now taking off the old oil filter, putting a little oil around the top of the new one and putting that back on, making sure that it's all nice and tight. Now what I do is I put the oil back in, and notice that I'm not putting it all back in one go. I know roughly how much I took out, so I know how much roughly I'm going to put back in, but I just keep doing it slowly. I don't want to overfill it, because you can do as much damage, if not more damage, by overfilling it with oil than less oil. So keeping checking, just waiting, a little bit more. Doesn't matter how many times you do it, it's always better to be safe than sorry. There we go. Okay, now just taking off the belt off the alternator, pushing it out, crank it up. It looks good there. Next I'll show you that the heat exchanger is off. When you take this off, you must remove the hoses, but you have to have something like a bucket or some device to catch the coolant, otherwise it's going to go into your build and you don't want to do that. Taking the heat exchanger off, it's had 4 pipes, coolant pipe, freshwater pipe, going back, and let's have a look at it. Here it is. Having a look, and it doesn't look too bad. A couple of blades in there from the impeller, but other than that it's looking pretty good. But we're going to descale it now. So we've got this descaler, we're doing 5 to 1. It's actually started fizzing on the top here, so it's working. It's actually descaled a bit already. Okay, I'm just using a brush to get all the engine cleared of dust and making it sure it looks nice, so you can see if there's any problems. Here, this is my impeller for the water pump, and I'm just greasing it with silicone, making sure I get everything. It makes it last longer and easier to put in. This one is really difficult to get in. Some ones you have to put in one way and you can't put it in the other. This one is just really tight and really fiddly, and I don't want to use too much force, but as you can see, it is a little pain, and sometimes you've got to look to see where the bar goes into the slot. Still going at it. Come on, get in. No. Just take your time, don't try and force it. It's all about being patient. Oh, it's in. Now what I do is put the plate back on, put the gasket on, put the plate back on, and slowly screw it down. And then I'm going really gentle with those, because you don't want to overdo it. But if you notice, I'm not doing them next to each other, I'm trying to do them opposite each other. And you try and get up the same tightness. Some people like using a normal wrench, normal spanner. So we've been descaled, I've put the ends back on, it's nice and clean now. What I'm going to do now is put a nice new anode back in it.
Are you putting in the coolant?
Yeah, because it might have to go down that way as well.
Son?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hot because it is pouring down. And we can't have the air conditioning on because the generator is in bits.
No, it's all back together now. Almost.
Alright. Should we turn the generator and the air conditioning on once it's working?
No. Maybe. Okay, so when I'm servicing an engine, what I'm doing is I'm checking the hoses, making sure they're not cracked. Where they crack is where they attach to the engine. If you don't check them and just put them back on and think, yeah, that's fine, as well as I did once, you suddenly get water all over your engine, and which is not a good thing. Once I exchange a hose, I keep that one because it's still serviceable in case that one splits, and then I order a new one. On the old pipe, it's wearing away here, and it's not long enough to cut off and put on, so we bought some new pipe. So we're going to change it, coming from the heat exchanger back up through there into a separator and out through the bottom. So it's the hot water, so the seawater comes in, goes into the heat exchanger, it cools the coolant water down, and then the hot water is then pumped out through this pipe, up through a separator and out underneath the hull. I noticed seawater was coming through the casing, which was just down here. It's just a little pinhole. There's no way you could repair it, so I decided to get a new one, and I got that when I was back in the United States. Okay, so here's the new one that I got in the United States, and what happens is, if you look down there, you'll see lots of little pipes, and in through those pipes goes the coolant. It's like a radiator, and what happens, water goes around, seawater gets pumped in, cools it down, and then gets pumped out, and that's what you see the water coming out the side of the boats for. And what it does, it acts as a radiator, and it cools the coolant, which then cools the engine. I'm going to start taking the old one off and putting the new one on. Kim's going to check what time it is, and we'll see how long. It should take about 45 minutes to an hour. We'll see. What happens is, this is attached, but it won't go through, so I don't think the new system is going to work. So I'm going to have to go to plan B. I'm going to take the old bracket off the old heat exchanger and attach it to the new one. Because these came off the old one, I know these are going to fit, so I've taken the old brackets off this. I'm going to slide them on there, make sure they're in the right position, tighten them up, and then put it back on. Okay.
I just want to point out that it's 11.
It's 11, so it's half an hour over my guess. I was a bit optimistic. It's back on now. I'm just tightening everything up. I'm going to tighten the bottom bracket so that pinches it tight, and then I'm going to put this in here. Then I'm going to put all the pipes back on, and then I'm going to have to go and buy some more coolant from the chandlery, and then we'll fill it up with coolant and see how it goes. Now it's leaking. It's 1:45. I found out one leak. It wasn't 3 leaks, what I thought it was. It was one leak. It was just a big leak with the new bit I put on. I hadn't quite tightened it up enough, so I took it all off again, tightened it up, put it back on. It's all working. I'm now having a break for lunch. Going to finish putting in the coolant, and then I'm going to test it. I'm just checking the oil. Going to start it up now, first time in 2 months. So how often do I do this major service? I do it at least once a year. I do other services every 150 hours where I change the oil, I change the impeller, and I look at the air filters and check the belts. So if this interests you and you want to see me doing something else, servicing or doing other jobs, please email me at simon@sailingbritican.com, and I'll see about making a film for you.
We are now offering week-long liveaboard experiences on Britican,
which involves either singles or couples with kids to come on and live with us for a week and experience what it's like actually to be a liveaboard on a boat.
So it will be like what we do to maintain the boat, what sails we use, how do we reef, what it's like to sail at night, what it's like to check into a different country, and it could even be what it's like to sail for 2 days in a row non-stop.
Yep.
Remember to visit sailingbritican.com to find out more about our sailing guides, Britican Club, and learn about our week-long Britican liveaboard sailing experience offering.